Anyway, let's get started. This is quick and fast and easy.
Allies, good people.
All right, we're obviously going to be
I
covering
think
the
doing that
Trump
because they're
Gaza
very
peace
tired of
plan and
what's
how
going on
shitty
for
it
so
is
many
and
decades.
what it actually spells.
Presidents and prime
And this was
ministers for years
obviously
during
after
this
a
time
tumultuous back and forth with
having to
the
do with the Middle
Israeli
East. All they're doing is
officials
talking
because
about the
Benjamin
same thing over and
Netanyahu
over. They wanna
had
see it
some
get back.
unique considerations. So
wants
we'll
that
take a
more
look
than
at exactly
me
how
or
this
I
works.
believe
Obviously, we'll
Bibi
talk
too.
about the medbed
But the
conspiracy
people of
theories
Israel
as
want it.
well.
They really want it.
So-
They want the hostages back. That includes the probably 32 bodies that we're talking about, 20 people that are living, 32 or so people that are dead, and they want to have peace. So let us not forget how we got here. Hamas was elected by the Palestinian people. Israel withdrew from Gaza thinking they would live in peace. Remember that a long time ago, they withdrew. They said, you take it. This is our contribution to peace. But that didn't work out. That didn't work out. It was the opposite of peace. They pulled away. They let them have it. And I never forgot that because I said, that doesn't sound like a good deal to me. As a real estate person, I mean, they gave up the ocean, right? Ron, they gave up the ocean. They said, who would do this deal? And it still didn't work out. They were very generous, actually. And they gave up the most magnificent piece of land in many ways in the Middle East. And they said, all we want to do now is have peace. And that request was not honored. Instead of building a better life for the Palestinians, Hamas diverted resources to build over.
You guys are saying it's low energy, but what you fail to consider is that like sucking Benjamin Netanyahu's penis for as long as he did and as hard as he did takes a lot out of a man, especially if he's like using both hands, paying extra attention to the shaft and balls, the asshole too. You know what I mean? Like that's like, you know, he might have even used his feet if we're keeping it at $150. So it's gonna require a lot of energy, and you know he has a finite amount in his battery. So that's probably what it is.
I challenge the Palestinians to take responsibility for their destiny.
My mom is listening. Well, your mom probably also knows that Donald Trump was eating Benjamin Netanyahu's ass earlier before he got up on that stage.
To a brighter future. They don't want the life that they've had. They've had a rough life with Hamas. If the Palestinian Authority does not complete the reforms that I laid out in my vision for peace in 2020, they'll have only themselves to blame. We're giving them an amazing
rejects
footprint.
This, you have our full backing to do what you need to do.
From the leaders of the Arab world and the Muslim world, the great leaders. These are great leaders. These are unbelievable leaders that have built great countries and very wealthy countries. What the future holds for the Palestinians, no one really knows. Focused on ending the war immediately, getting all of our hostages back, getting everything back. Hard to believe when you even say it, and creating conditions for durable Israeli security and Palestinian success. Israeli security is going to be involved. We're going to help you. We'll be there with you in terms of helping with security. We want to make sure it works. We just want to make sure it works. There shouldn't be a shot fired. Now, there will be, I guess, because that's the way it seems to be, but they shouldn't have to be within a few days. There shouldn't have to be a shot fired. Maybe for eternity. Wouldn't that be nice? I hope it's true. I can tell you the leadership of that region feels that there's a good chance of it being true. So this will lead to this agreement that we're talking about will lead to a sustainable long-term peace. No president in history has been a greater friend of the state of Israel than I have, in addition to negotiating the
he ain't wrong.
Abraham
He ain't
Accords.
wrong.
I like to say it that way because
he is a great friend of
real people, that's
Israel.
what they call Abraham. I would say Abraham, but it's so much nicer when you say Abraham.
What?
So much more elegant.
So fucking stupid.
But the
Trump plan for Gaza
Accords
includes the transitional border peace that would be headed by President Donald J. Trump.
Geniuses. And nobody thought that could be done. We have 4 countries, and Sleepy Joe Biden didn't do a thing. He didn't even know what the hell they were.
We're led by madmen who are incredibly stupid
but I
and
think this
incredibly
will also
violent
lead
and
to
incredibly vile.
Packing them. And who knows, maybe even Iran can get in there. I hope, we hope we're going to be able to get along with Iran. I think they're going to be open to it. I really believe that. But they could be a member. I long ago said, I'll bet you at some point Iran will be a member of the Accords. And little did I realize it was going to take this turn. That was some turn we did with the B-2s. But I think they might very well be there because it's a great thing for them economically. I recognize the eternal capital of Israel. I opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. That was something that everyone said would never be done, could never be done. Virtually every president for many, many years, for decades, would campaign on making Jerusalem the capital of Israel. They campaigned on it over and over. Is that right, Steve? Is that right? Everyone, and when they got to it, and I understand why now, because it was so. When I got to office, I campaigned on it too. I said, we're going to make it. And then I'd get calls from the leaders of various countries saying, please don't do it. Please don't do it. It'll end the whole world. Please don't do it. And finally, I just didn't say anything, and I did it. People were calling me before I did it because they heard I was going to do it. And leaders of countries were calling me. And I think it was on a Thursday that I did it. And they'd call me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3-4 times a day, and I said, tell them I'll call them back on Friday. And I announced it on Thursday, and I called them back, the biggest people in the world, and they said, you've done it. I said, what? You've made the capital
Bro, he sounds
Israel,
dead.
Jerusalem, and we wanted to talk yet. I wish you called me a little sooner. Maybe I could have done something
This
about
is
it.
the most
So that was a
Brandonized
lot
he's ever
easier
been.
than
I
getting
wonder
into
if
an
it's
argument.
like I wonder if there's something
Because I
going
knew
on
what
with
they were
like
calling
how
about.
much
And
you
you know
dick
what? It
ride
turned out to
Israel.
be
Like
amazing.
when you're throwing your
Everybody
back out
thought it
on
was
that
gonna
on
lead
that
to
penis.
The end of
The
world,
more you
right?
go
The end of
hard
the
for
world, well,
Israel,
that's what they
the
said.
more your life energy is
It didn't
sucked
lead to
out of
anything.
you.
It just led to something that I promised and
This
something
is the
that was
most
very, very
Brandonized
popular
speech
for
that he's delivered in a while, dude.
Jewish people and a lot of other people too. I recognize Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and I cut taxpayer funding to the corrupt United Nations Relief and Works Agency. And United
Like
Nations was interesting because,
he's trying to talk about his
as you
bona
know, a few days
fides
ago they
about how much
introduced
he's
me,
like
ladies and gentlemen,
been pro-Israel
the President
here.
of the United States.
And
I'm
he's just
looking at
having
my
such a hard
teleprompter, and
time
the
coming
thing was
up with.
dead,
I
stone
mean,
cold.
he's having a hard time
dead.
explaining it.
The thing's up here. I have a long, beautiful speech to make. I'm back 30 feet back, and I'm saying, they're introducing me. There's nothing on my teleprompter. So, but I made a speech. I actually got good marks. You think Biden could have done that? I don't think so. I don't think he could have done that. I don't think too many people could have done it. But actually, it was actually more of a speech from my heart, if you want to know the truth. I think it was
Thanks for everything.
maybe better in certain
Have a
ways
good one.
because it was from the heart. It has to be from the heart. Otherwise, you're in big trouble. But I cut
It has to be from the heart,
taxpayer-
otherwise you're
payer
in big
funding
trouble.
for that very corrupt United Nations Relief and Works Agency, and nobody thought that would be done, and withdrew from the horrible Iran nuclear deal that was imposed upon Israel by Barack Hussein Obama and Biden. And I don't think Biden knew anything about it, though. I don't think he knows anything about it now, actually, if you ask him. He'd say, what is that? And we obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity, making it impossible for them to have a nuclear weapon, which they would have had probably in about 2 months.
JPK
from that.
Mets 31. Thank you with the 25.
But I've never
I see
asked
Valorant is still doing
Israel
it.
to compromise its security, but we had big, strong talk. Nobody's been better to Israel. No president's been better to Israel than Donald Trump. But we had a long, strong talk, Bibi and I, and he understands it's time. It's time. History has shown, and the people of Israel want it. And the people of the Middle East want it. The people of enemies of Israel want it, but they don't have really
Breaking Israeli
too
Prime
many
Minister
enemies
Benjamin
right now.
Netanyahu spoke on the phone with
And you
Prime
know
Minister
what?
Qatar Mohammed bin
Many
Abdurrahman Al
countries have
Thani
gained great
and
respect
apologized for
for
violating
Israel
Qatari
for the way
sovereignty
they
in the
fight,
strike in
the
Doha and
job
expressed
they
regret
do.
for the killing of a Qatari security guard per
Including
source
me, had
familiar.
respect anyway, but they gained respect.
Oh, God.
History has shown us that those who have relations with Israel have thrived, while those who have devoted resources and attention toward the destruction and even
I'm not
annihilation.
Mr. Blue and On, but he is not looking good today, okay? I am not Mr. Health complications are imminent. You guys know this. I try to shy away from that sort of commentary, but he is looking like a man who is on 1 HP here.
The
I
promise
haven't
of the
seen him
new
this
Middle
bad in a
East
minute.
is so clearly-
And it's early in the day, too, which makes it harder. He is hitting Brandonization levels that I haven't seen thus far.
If we can get this difficult problem solved, the opportunities for all within that vast region of this world, it's a vast region, it's unlimited. The Abraham Accords show that all countries are better off when they communicate and work together and embrace new opportunities. I hope Jared and Steve and Susie and Marco and JD, we have great people. I hope you guys are going to work very hard to get these other countries in, because now they have no excuse. There's no longer an excuse. They were some were hesitant. And I tell you, the 4 countries that went in, I give them tremendous credit, and it's worked out incredibly well for them. In the same spirit, I'm pleased to report that earlier today, we took another important step toward greater understanding of the region. A short time ago, we had a historic phone call in the Oval Office with Prime Minister Tani, who's really a great person. So we had a great talk, and I was on the phone, and Bibi was talking. Prime Minister Al Thani was of Qatar. They really had a heart-to-heart conversation. It was a great conversation, I thought. It was productive. It was everything that you need to have something turn out to be successful. And I want to thank Bibi, and I want to thank the Prime Minister. It was fantastic. We agreed to launch a formal trilateral mechanism between Israel, Qatar, and the United States to begin a dialogue to enhance mutual security, correct misperceptions, and avoid future misgivings. And I want to thank Qatar, its leadership, and the Emir. He's a fantastic person. I think, I'm going to be his public relations man, because I know him differently than a lot of people know him. But he wants peace.
Brother,
he wants to see peace.
We're going to talk about the John.
And his people.
We're going to talk about the John Oliver speech as well, or the John Oliver Benjamin Netanyahu thing as well. Okay, don't worry.
And again,
What's
we're
my
not quite finished. We
interpretation?
have to
I have to
get
make a full assessment after I look through all of the minutia. But I covered this before. I covered the 21-point peace plan before. There were 3 different main variants. It seems like they're going with like a combination of the French, Saudi, Arab forces, and then also with like some kind of British vizier in the form of Tony Blair. So it's a combined deal between the French Saudi deal and the American-backed Tony Blair deal, and obviously there's some like Israeli pushback in there as well. But we'll see. We'll see what. I mean, I think it's awful regardless, because it completely violates all semblance of Palestinian sovereignty. But we'll see exactly what the final deal looked like.
So that we can end the war and get us back our hostages right now and have everlasting peace. And I look forward to having relationships with everyone as the chairman of the board.
The thing is, even like symbolic gestures of conditional Palestinian recognition of statehood have led Israel to completely collapse and lose their minds over it. So any kind of pushback on Benjamin Netanyahu's full tilt occupation is going to be received very negatively in Israeli society, and certainly in the Israeli Knesset. So no matter what happens, any sort of deal that Donald Trump puts forward is going to be seen, even if it's a puppet state established by the Palestinian, PA, that is an arm of the Israeli security apparatus, as I've talked about over and over again, is still something that is unacceptable. It's a non-starter for Israel, no matter how bad this looks for the Palestinians. So I don't know where this is going to go regardless.
For his partnership, and I want to thank all of the leaders, the kings and the emirs and the presidents and prime ministers, people I mentioned. And they've been absolutely fantastic to work with, and it's just happened very quickly. It's happened from a couple of weeks before I had a couple of meetings, but a couple of weeks before we went to the United Nations And we had some incredible meetings. It all came to place. It all took place, and everybody wanted to be a part of it. I don't have anybody that's saying we don't want anything to do with it. It's just the opposite. And I'll tell you, a couple of years ago, a year ago, I don't think we would have had this kind of participation, Mr. VP, right? I don't think we would have had. It's been amazing. The participation was 100%. Everybody wants to be a part of it. And everybody, those very strong countries, everybody wants it to work. So, Bibi, congratulations on this. I think this will be your crowning achievement, frankly.
America is hotter from the standpoint of weather than anybody has ever seen before. I'm talking climate change levels, apocalyptic.
Mr. President,
all right, let's
first
see what
I want
this
to thank
fucking
you
asshole
for
has to say.
graciously hosting me
Agent of
once
Satan.
again in the White House.
Satan Yahoo.
And second, I want to thank you for your friendship and for your leadership. From Jerusalem to Tehran, from the Golan Heights to Gaza, you've proven time and again what I've said many times. You are the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House. And Mr. President, you and I both know it's not even close. While you focus at home on making America great again, your leadership abroad is changing the world for the better, ending wars and advancing peace. I believe that today we're taking a critical step towards both ending the war in Gaza and setting the stage for dramatically advancing peace in the Middle East. And I think beyond the Middle East, in very important Muslim countries. I support your plan to end the war in Gaza, which achieves our war aims. It will bring back to Israel all our hostages, dismantle Hamas's military capabilities, end its political rule, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. We would not have achieved this turning point
Why does Bibi support the ceasefire
without
plan and
the
calls for an end to the war? Bad
courage
for him.
and
No occupation,
sacrifice
annexation. Bad for him. Is there
of
something
our
for Bibi that we're not
incredibly
seeing?
brave soldiers.
I have to look through the actual minutia,
like lions
but I think the reason why he's doing
defend the
this is
people of
because
Israel.
the reason why he's saying
they
yes to
serve
it is
on the
probably
front
because he
line
knows that the deal is
The
so
war
fucking
between
bad
civilization
for any sort of Palestinian
barbers.
militancy that he knows that they'll say
President,
no to it. So this will make him look like he's
when
not
our
the
two
spoiler
countries
for
stand
once.
shoulder to shoulder,
He knows that Hamas will never agree to the full
achieve the
demilitarization of
impossible.
Gaza, even though Hamas might actually end up agreeing to it just to see if Israel will violate the deal regardless. But
a decisive blow against Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile
I think
program.
ultimately, because America
Your
and
bold
Israel are
decision
tied to the hip
to send
here,
those B-2s
given what they have done so
the
far,
region
any
safer
sort of back and forth here
and the world
is
safer.
simply for the cameras.
Now, under your
Because I
leadership,
don't think Benjamin Netanyahu has
taking the
been an
next step
autonomous figure in this,
to win
right?
the war
I know I joke often about like how,
peace.
you know, Trump is obviously letting Benjamin
Your plan is
Netanyahu
consistent
dominate
with
and
the
blah, blah,
five
blah, all this
principles
shit.
my
But
government
like,
set for the end of the war.
but I will say,
And the
I
day
think
after
that
Hamas.
all of this, all of these dealings, all of these associations, all of the back and forth is just pure show.
in the cabinet.
And ultimately, their grand
All our
design is still to
hostages,
allow Israel to take full
those
control
who
over the
are
Gaza
alive
Strip.
and those
So
who
I
died,
suspect that this will make it easier
of
because
them
they'll use the
home,
legislation, they'll use the advancement
Hamas
of
will be
demilitarization, and then inevitably
Gaza
let
will be
Israel come in and kick the coverage.
Israel
That's
will
what I
retain
suspect is
security
going to happen.
responsibility,
So
including
that's
a security
probably part of the
perimeter
reason why
for the foreseeable future.
he's leaning into it,
lastly,
because Benjamin
Gaza will
Netanyahu
have a
has
peaceful
designed a peace plan before. Remember, under Biden, the initial ceasefire plan was sold to us, even though it was identical to the Hamas plan for months and months and months. It was identical to the Hamas plan that was presented over and over again. They made it seem like it was actually Benjamin Netanyahu's plan, right? And then Benjamin Netanyahu personally violated his own ceasefire agreement that the American government was selling as the Israeli ceasefire agreement. So I don't believe that these guys have any sort of ambition beyond what they've done so far, which is like the complete advancement of total ethnic cleansing of all Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. whether by pen or by bullets, they will achieve that goal unless they are stopped, unless there are significant efforts to undermine Israel's standing around the world. And this revolves around boycotts, divestments, and sanctions, like the ones that Spain is actually implementing, right? That kind of shit. And that only happens with tremendous amounts of pressure from the public. This kind of initiative is done in an effort to make it seem as though there's some kind of movement in the positive direction for the Palestinians here. But the reality of the matter is it's just a pressure valve. It's a response to all of the ongoing efforts, all of the ongoing union efforts as well in places like Italy, for example. And this is their, oh my God, Trump is falling asleep. This is their way to try and manage the conversation. Okay? Please, I beg, if you talk about Moroccan youth, it will be a game changer for our cause. I don't know what you're talking about, man. I have no idea what's going on.
Can be done the hard way, but it will be done. We prefer the easy way, but it has to be done. All these goals must be achieved because we didn't fight this horrible fight, sacrifice the finest of our young men to have Hamas stay in Gaza and threaten us again and again and again. Massacres. Mr. President, I was encouraged by your clear statement at the UN against the recognition of a Palestinian state. That would be an outcome that, after October 7th, would reward terrorism, undermine security, and endanger Israel's very existence. As for the Palestinian Authority, I appreciate your firm position that the PA could have no role whatsoever in Gaza without undergoing a radical and genuine transformation. In your 2020 peace plan, which you mentioned just now,
I'm telling you, man, this motherfucker,
you made clear what that transformation would.
This motherfucker has said over and over and over again that this motherfucker said over and over and over again that he does not want a Palestinian statehood. Anything that these guys advance in the direction of peace is just smoke and mirrors, okay? Is cloak and daggers, is smoke and mirrors, is just a way to restructure the narrative. They do not care about the material, okay? They do not care about the material realities. They know it's full tilt genocide no matter which way it goes. They do care about managing said genocide from the PR perspective. This, I think, should be read. This should be read in the same exact way that these guys have supposedly implemented ceasefire initiatives in the past. A way to say Hamas is the spoiler here. Hamas is the spoiler here. And they just like keep putting forward like maximalist positions over and over and over again in an effort to lay the blame of the setbacks on Hamas while they just continue fucking killing people. Because Israel hasn't stopped its bombing campaigns. Israel did not stop its bombing campaigns when Benjamin Netanyahu was speaking at the UN General Assembly. Israel did not stop its bombing campaigns this morning while this was happening. They are still actively and tirelessly working to complete the genocide. Okay?
Abraham, however you want to call it. Under your leadership, Mr. President, we can re-energize the Abraham Accords that we forged 5 years ago. We can expand them to many more Arab and Muslim nations that choose moderation over extremism. I think there's an opportunity here. It's not going to be easy. It's tough going. But I think if we succeed, you're absolutely right. We're going to open possibilities that nobody even dreamed of. But I think we dream of them. As you've told me, Mr. President, and you've told the world many, many times, you said, remember October 7th. Remember October 7th. And we do. We will never forget the horrors of October 7th, and we will do whatever is necessary to make sure they don't happen again. Since October 7th, Israel's enemies have learned a hard truth. Those who attack us pay a heavy price, but those who partner with us advance progress and security for their peoples. President Trump just said it. It's also in the Bible.
Dude.
It says, those who will bless you will be blessed, and those who will curse you will be cursed. And that's actually what is happening. we want the blessings. I think we've done a lot in the
gotta pee.
past 2 years to end the curse. We're not finished, but we've done a lot. And we've done a lot together to end the curse. I want to thank your entire team for their efforts to get to this point. I especially want to thank Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner for their indefatigable work to bring Israel and Arab states in the region closer together. I am deeply grateful to both of them for their work. We had a phone call today just to make it clear. I said to the Prime Minister of Qatar, Israel was targeting terrorists, wasn't targeting Qatar. And of course, we regretted the loss of the Qatari citizen, wasn't our target. And I very much appreciate President Trump's proposal to have a trilateral body, the United States, Israel, and Qatar, to work out respective grievances. There are quite a few. But if we can try to mitigate them or put it on a different footing, I think that'll be good for everyone. Above all the people, the fine team, the many helpers who've done this, I want to thank you, Mr. President. History has already shown that under your leadership, Israel and America can change the face of the Middle East. And today I'm hopeful that your plan to end the war in Gaza will do so again and do so soon. It will free our hostages, end Hamas's tyranny in Gaza, and enable a more secure and prosperous future for the peoples of our region. Thank you, Mr. President. May God bless America. May God bless Israel. May God bless the indispensable alliance between our countries. And may I add in Hebrew, G'mal Chatima Tova, may we all be inscribed in the book of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bibi.
Baby.
So I think while we wait for these documents to be signed and get everybody in line, I think it maybe is not really appropriate to take questions. I'm meeting with, as you know,
What the
a
fuck?
couple of Democrats in a little while about the country.
Oh, government
about,
shutdown,
keeping
yeah.
our country open. They're going to have to do some things because their ideas are not very good ones. They're very bad for our country. So we'll see how that works out. But this is something that was really historic today. This was something that was amazing. I think, Bibi, I mean, depending on you, I think while we're waiting for signatures and waiting for approvals from a lot of different countries that are involved in this, we probably shouldn't take questions? Or would you like to take a question or two from perhaps
Jesus
a friendly
Christ.
Israeli reporter, if there's such a thing?
Jesus
It's
Christ.
a very, very tough proposition.
Yeah.
God, what a dick sucker.
Mr.
Oh my
President,
God.
but I
I
would go by
can't
your instinct
stand this
that this
motherfucker,
is,
bro.
We'll have enough time for questions. Let's settle the issue first.
He doesn't know that Benjamin Netanyahu hates Israeli reporters, by the way, with the exception of like maybe 2 channels that he was directly prosecuted for, ironically enough. Like, Benjamin Netanyahu would much rather talk to American reporters who are much more servile to the interests of Zionism and Israel than Israeli reporters. He notoriously does not do Israeli interviews. He notoriously would rather go and talk to the fucking Nelk boys or Officer Tatum or any number of different like pro-Israel right-wing fucking podcasters than actually spend any moment with any Israeli reporters, even like Yediot Ahronot, like, which is not exactly an anti-Zionist newspaper at all, not even a liberal Zionist newspaper, as a matter of fact. But he doesn't like that because Israeli reporters understand the dynamic a lot better than Western reporters do. So that's why he said, no, I'm not going to talk to anybody. Israeli reporters be like, this is unacceptable once you drop the nuke. No, you're wrong. Remember, in Israel, there is no need to soften the propaganda. In Israel, there is no need to make, like, New York Times has a different approach to covering Israel than Haaretz does, than Ynet does, than Jerusalem Post does. And the reason for why is because there are internal domestic affairs that are taking place in Israel, and that they don't need to like do the Israel is doing this for a righteous cause propaganda that like the New York Times has to do for the Western audiences. Because if the New York Times actually would cover Israel honestly, then most people would have the same opinions that we have here at this broadcast. The reason why we have arrived at the position, the anti-Israel position that we've arrived at, is because of Israel's actions and its conduct. There is no reason by Israeli outlets to manage or soften or temper the Israeli violence. They actually take that. They actually are fully on board with that as a society, which is precisely why they can be critical of Benjamin Netanyahu, knowing full well that like if Benjamin Netanyahu weren't the prime minister, anyone else that comes after would probably manage the conflict in an identical fashion. New York Times, on the other hand, can't do that. In any case, just came here for the briefing. What a fucking nightmare. I know. We're going to talk about that in a second. So, couple high notes here. Breaking: Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke on the phone with the Prime Minister of Qatar, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, and apologized for violating Qatari sovereignty in the strike on Doha and expressed regret for the killing of a Qatari security guard, per source familiar. The call took place during the meeting between Netanyahu and Trump. Does this mean anything? I don't think so. Does this mean that Israel will never violate the sovereignty of other neutral parties or parties that are also a part of the American security apparatus in the region? If you believe that, you are a fucking moron. Okay? There are clips of Trump.
Effort, my
Yeah, clips of Trump announcing the Board of Peace, but basically, I still see this in the same way that I've seen previous ceasefire negotiations with maximalist positions that are designed around managing the PR of the genocide rather than actually ending it, right? And that's precisely what's going on here as well. Alex Ward, who is the national security reporter at Wall Street Journal, has an interesting take on this. Old plan: Hamas, release all the hostages or Israel can keep attacking you. New plan: Hamas, agree to all 20 points of my plan, which includes the release of hostages or Israel can keep attacking you. That is exactly what this is. Okay? It's the same old, same old. It's just a way to manage the PR. One of the key Hamas demands has been that Trump himself guarantee a ceasefire because they don't trust Netanyahu. Trump's twist on that demand is to create a board of peace and name himself the chair. He also had some rather stinging words towards Netanyahu. He continuously mentions October 7. Trump said of Netanyahu, he can never forget October 7, but thousands have paid the price for that. And now it's time to get our hostages back and get back trying to build something that's really great. He also noted that there are regular protests in Israel against Netanyahu, alluding to the fact that Trump is actually more popular in Israel than Netanyahu. I noticed they have large crowds gathered all the time in Israel, and they have my name up. They like me for whatever reason. Bibi, I don't know. But they say two things: please get the hostages back and end the war. So I think it's a very popular thing you're doing. He's a warrior. He doesn't know about getting back to a normal way of life. But now the people want to get back to peace. Once again, this is all a byproduct of the pariah state that Israel has become. This is making it harder for America to continue offering maximum loyalty to Israel because it makes people frustrated. It makes the Western populations frustrated. This is the reason why all of the Western leaders, if you've noticed, have taken symbolic actions against Israel. And that alone is an indication that people are going to literally overthrow their governments if they don't fucking do something at this point. You know, people are recognizing that democracy is a failed enterprise because of the ways in which they have made such reasonable demands and yet gotten nothing in return for such reasonable demands, such as stop the genocide, right? I cannot repeat this enough, okay? The conditional recognition of Palestinian statehood is an exit ramp for Israel to continue Zionist domination. And yet Israel is so invested in permanent warfare, in permanent death and destruction, partially because when the dust settles, Benjamin Netanyahu is not incorrect in his assessment that this will collapse Israeli society, okay? Because Israeli society is held together by pure domination of the Palestinians right now. That's the only thing, that is the only glue that holds Israeli society together. permanent domination of Palestinians and all Arab states around Israel is the only thing that keeps the Israeli society going, where they go, oh, this is a security concern now. We have to bomb Lebanon. Oh, this is a security concern. We have to bomb this country, that country. Once that goes away and you have civilians, NGOs, human rights organizations, and the international community storm Gaza with a sea of support, it's going to be so over. It is going to be so over for any kind of PR initiative that Israel could launch. And I think Benjamin Netanyahu understands that. Benjamin Netanyahu recognizes that reality, which is why he can't afford peace, because peace would mean the complete collapse of Israel at the domestic front, due to how much more pressure will advance on Israel on the international front. That is where we are at currently. I don't think it's because Benjamin Netanyahu is more concerned about his career and not being arrested than the stability of Israel. I think that he is an actor. He is an actor that is advancing the overall Zionist project and its interests, and also an actor that is advancing America's interest in the region of Israel's domination. That's all this is. I don't think that someone like Benjamin Netanyahu will be punished so severely for the corruption charges that he has because he fucking bribed like news outlets or something for positive coverage. That kind of shit is so manageable. Dude, he is doing a genocide. He can't even go over fucking Spanish airspace right now, and he's still able to freely travel to the United States of America. What makes you think that that is an issue of consequence? At most, he'll just fly to America and remain in the United States of America for the rest of his fucking life, and then Israel will not punish him at all. Are you kidding me? That's inconsequential. Benjamin Netanyahu, just like any other leader that will come after him, and just like any other leader that came before him, is simply an actor that is following the interests of American empire and Zionism, okay? Ali Harb from Al Jazeera says, I think this is dead on arrival. Hard to think Palestinians who have sacrificed so much would hand the keys to Trump and Tony Blair in exchange for vague promises of peace and prosperity and no timetables for Israeli withdrawal or even talks of self-determination. Yeah. Palestinian sovereignty is the most consequential aspect of Palestinian statehood. You cannot achieve sovereignty through demilitarization, especially as a genocide is ongoing, with no hardline guarantees on military withdrawal and no clear-cut, well-defined positions on how this withdrawal is going to look. And then handing over Palestinian sovereignty to a Western government is ridiculous. The reason why October 7 happened is because Palestinians were written off in the Abraham Accords. That was a big driving component for Palestinians that recognize the Palestinian liberation groups that recognize that military resistance was the only way out of the situation, because all of the peace negotiations thus far had amounted to nothing, and that it was clear that after Trump won with the Abraham Accords, that they were written out of the equation, that Israel was going to slowly but surely do the exact same thing that they were doing in West Bank, in Gaza as well, through sieges and through military conquest, and permanently drive all the indigenous population out of historic Palestine. That's it. And it would not stop there anyway, which is precisely the reason why it's crazy that the GCC and Gulf states in general don't even recognize that they are in the crosshairs directly as well. But here is Jake Sherman summarizing the plan to end the war in Gaza. Gaza will be a de-radicalized terror-free zone that does not pose a threat to its neighbors. Gaza will be redeveloped for the benefit of the people of Gaza, who have suffered more than enough. If both sides agree to this proposal, the war will immediately end. Israeli forces will withdraw the agreed-upon line to prepare for a hostage release. During this time, all military operations, including aerial and artillery bombardment, will be suspended. What they are banking on is the discontent from the Palestinians that have suffered so much. They have experienced the genocide. They have suffered so much violence. They've seen virtually all of their family members get wiped out or gravely wounded in the process. Their entire civil society has collapsed in and of itself. And of course, they want peace. They want an end to this bloodshed. They want an end to this genocide. Israel very clearly has a maximalist position of just like purging all Palestinian life from the Gaza Strip. They do not want that, but also they just want this war to end. They just want this genocide to end, which is an understandable position. This is why, after all of the military pressure, after all of the pressure that is created through the genocide, they are banking on the Palestinian population to tell Hamas, like, please take this deal. Please take this deal. I'm not so certain that the demilitarization aspect of this, regardless of whether Hamas is in charge or not, because it's very clear that Hamas doesn't give a fuck about like continuing to govern Gaza, but they do care about ensuring that there is some semblance of a militarized force that isn't completely disarmed in this process. Understandably, you can't have any sovereignty without a military, and a demand to disarm in the process of a genocide is a ridiculous demand to make, right? Obviously. It's clear to me that this maximalist position that creates like a European viceroy, right? A colonial vestige here, completely dominating Palestinian lives at the behest of and the directive of Israel eventually, because Tony Blair is basically an agent for American imperialism and, of course, Zionism as well. If they were to set something like this up with Western powers controlling Palestine, whatever it looks like, then Palestinians still don't have any sort of sovereignty whatsoever. Within 72 hours of Israel publicly accepting this agreement, all hostages alive and deceased will be returned. Once all hostages are released, Israel will release 250 life-sentence prisoners plus 1,700 Gazans who were detained after October 7, 2023, including all women and children detained in that context. For every Israeli hostage whose remains are released, Israel will release the remains of 15 deceased Gazans, which, by the way, again, look at that. They have 10,000 plus hostages in Israeli prisons, Palestinian hostages in Israeli prisons. Interesting admission here is that they are releasing 1,700 Gazans who were detained after October 7. After October 7. These are the doctors, the nurses, the teachers, the people that they actually shackled and tortured, sometimes raped to death in the concentration camps, like Sidi Tayman. Okay? These are people that were unjustly detained and tortured in their concentration camps. And it's not even all of them. It's just some of them, 1,700 of them. They did this so that they can have an additional bargaining chip without even putting a dent to the 10,000 plus Palestinian prison population in Israel, that many of which were also packed up in the West Bank and continue to be arrested in West Bank under military tribunal inside of military detention facilities that have a process called administrative detention, where it is a permanent hold no matter how young you might be. Israel has also internally decided that they can now offer the death penalty for Palestinian prisoners inside of administrative detention. So they're going to start killing them as well, for the record. Full-blown death camp, concentration camp to death camp change is happening imminently, happening in front of our eyes, in real time, in broad daylight, okay? Once all the hostages are returned, Hamas members who commit to peaceful coexistence and to decommission their weapons will be given amnesty. Members of Hamas who wish to leave Gaza will be provided safe passage to receiving countries. Upon acceptance of this agreement, once again, this betrays what Hamas has done so far. This is written by an Israeli. This part is a fundamental misunderstanding of what Hamas is doing. They still operate under the same notion that Israeli leadership has, which is that these guys are out of step with Palestinian population. They're not actually invested in developing sovereignty for the Palestinians. They're not invested in ending the occupation. They're simply covering their own asses. That is why they put provisions like this in a bill such as this one, and they have made this demand known over and over again, whereas the Hamas militancy has refused over and over again. This also goes along with all of the fucking fake bullshit that they presented about Yahya Sinwar potentially being all the way in Doha, escaped under the tunnels, or if he's even in a tunnel, if he's even in a tunnel system under Gaza, he's probably strapped to like numerous Israeli baby hostages or whatever the fuck. It turns out he fucking was killed fighting till the last breath. So obviously that was bullshit. In any case, upon acceptance of this agreement, full aid will be immediately sent into the Gaza Strip. At a minimum, aid quantities will be consistent with what was included in the January 19, 2025 agreement regarding humanitarian aid, including rehabilitation of infrastructure, water, electricity, sewage, rehabilitation of hospitals and bakeries, and entry of necessary equipment to remove rubble and open roads. Think about this. How is this a part of the negotiation? This negotiation is a recognition of the genocide. Okay? This is a recognition of the genocide. This means that both the American parties and the Israeli parties recognize that they have stopped aid from going into the Gaza Strip, something that they've denied over and over again, for the record, because they know it is a violation of international human rights. All the standards in warfare, even before international human rights existed as a concept, this is a violation of that, right? So they are recognizing it. They're recognizing that they're admitting that they're doing war crimes, and they're using war crimes against a captive civilian population as a fucking bartering chip. How insane. This means every single thing that they are going to allow, if Hamas agrees to it, was a thing that was going on up until this very point. This is a clear-cut recognition of the severe violation of human rights that Israel is committed to in this genocide, okay? I hope this opens up more people's eyes to the reality, the utter devastation that Israel has channeled throughout this genocide, okay? Entry of distribution and aid in the Gaza Strip will proceed without interference from the two parties through the United Nations and its agencies. Again, something that they violated through the Gaza Holocaust Fund, which the United Nations' own report showed contributed to the death, destruction, and the famine in the Gaza Strip. So they're saying, oh, the thing that we did as the two belligerent parties, the United States of America and Israel, the GHF, the Gaza Holocaust Fund, or also known as the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, yeah, that was bullshit. We're going to pull that back as well. Another recognition, okay? In addition to other international institutions not associated with any matter in either party. Opening the Rafah crossing in both directions will be subject to the same mechanism implemented under the January 19th, 2025 agreement. Gaza will be governed under the temporary transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee. This is the demand that was made by Hamas, and they are abiding by it. But like I said, smoke and mirrors, cloak and daggers. This is a fake recognition of that demand, because this Palestinian technocratic committee is still always going to be under the banner or the rulership of a colonial vestige, right? A viceroyalty, if you will, like a vizier, Tony Blair, or some other Western leader is going to be in control over this Palestinian technocratic committee, responsible for delivering the day-to-day ruling of public services and municipalities for the people in Gaza. This committee will be made up of qualified Palestinians and international experts with oversight and supervision by a new international transitional body, the Board of Peace. That's the problem here. Do you understand? They're going to put exactly. They're going to put the Atlantic Council guy on the committee. They're going to put Ahmed Fouad al-Khatib and all these other people. Not Hamas. Other Arab nations made that demand. Yes, but Hamas has said yes to this demand. Hamas has said yes to disbanding. Hamas has said yes to disbanding and allowing a transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee to take over the day-to-day functions of civil governance in the Strip. They said yes to that, okay? Remember, they said yes to that. They agreed to that, except they did not agree to having that board be controlled by anyone but Palestinians. Okay? The problem here is that they do not want that board to be beholden to the Palestinian population, but instead beholden to the Board of Peace, which will be headed and chaired by President Donald J. Trump. with other members and heads of state to be announced, including former Prime Minister Tony Blair. This body will set the framework and handle the funding for the redevelopment of Gaza. The reason why Tony Blair is a significant person here, and is it once again, it proves that there is no real investment in making sure that this is a peaceful transition for Palestinians to gain some sort of dignity or sovereignty, is because Tony Blair is one, also known as the Butcher of Iraq, but Tony Blair is the fucking, George W. Bush of England. But also, on top of that, Tony Blair played a role in Boston Consulting Group and the Gaza Holocaust Fund. He literally has been aligned with Israel and America's interests every step of the fucking way. Like, this is even worse than the Palestinian Authority controlling the Gaza Strip, which already would be unimaginably unpopular in the eyes of all Palestinians, both in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. Do you understand? They don't even want the Palestinian Authority, which is, again, a part of the Israeli security apparatus, to play a role in the governance. They want this to be completely controlled by Western powers. Okay? Western powers that are beholden to not only America's interests directly, Donald J. Trump, or Israel's interests, because America's interests are aligned with Israel's interests, no matter how much they act as though there's friction there. This body will set the framework and handle the funding for the redevelopment of Gaza until such time as the Palestinian Authority has completed its reform program, as outlined in various proposals, including President Trump's peace plan in 2020 and the Saudi-French proposal, and can securely and effectively take back control of Gaza. Like I said, the competing plans here were the Trump peace proposal, this one, and it has some components of the Saudi-French proposal as well. These two are the leading proposals that try to at least fake it as though like there is some sort of Palestinian statehood that could happen in the future with no real recognition of such. But Israel has said no to all of this thus far. So the reason why Israel's saying yes to it means that they probably secured additional secret recognitions for allowing Israel to do whatever the fuck it wants to do, to continue doing whatever the fuck it wants to in the Gaza Strip. And yes, Hamas is saying they just found out about this deal. We were not informed on Trump's plan before its announcement, and its terms are close to the Israeli vision. What happened was an attempt to suppress the international momentum and recognition of Palestinian statehood. That's what Hamas official Mahmoud Mardawi said just now. And they were lying this whole time. We're like, Hamas knows this deal is imminent. They were always lying, as I covered over and over again, obviously. And also, the White House's talking points regarding this plan say a reform PA will eventually take over from whatever this transitional entity in Gaza is. Netanyahu, in his remarks, seems to have ruled out PA involvement and expects full Israel control of Gaza's border and security. This is why I said this bill is dead on arrival, and it's actually put together to manage the PR around Israel's genocide. It's not to actually stop Israel's genocide. Do you understand? Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't the case, but it's very clear that this deal is put together specifically to manage Israel's PR. The reason why they have to manage this PR, by the way, is good, okay? That means that our pressure, that means that all of the fucking work stoppages, the flotillas, the imminent UEFA decision that could potentially bar Israel from competing in international sports events, at least when it comes to football, soccer, or Eurovision. Like, the cancellation of these sorts of things are actually putting a little bit of fear in at least America's calculations. Okay, at least in America's calculations of like how they can be lockstep with Israel. This is not an opportunity to pull back and look at this and go, oh, we've done it. This is a victory. This is an opportunity to continue applying pressure. Make no mistake. The 8th flotilla that is entering the Gaza Strip, like the waters, the coastline of Israel right now, the blockade that Israel has implemented illegally while it's participating in this genocide, is even more important right now. President Trump's peace plan in 2020 and the Saudi-French proposal and can securely and effectively take control of Gaza. This body will call on best international standards to create modern and efficient governance that serves the people of Gaza and is conducive to attracting investment. A Trump economic development plan to rebuild and energize Gaza will be created by convening a panel of experts who have helped birth some of the thriving modern miracle cities of the Middle East. Many thoughtful, just talking about UAE and Saudi, by the way, and Qatar too. They're talking about like, they are basically they're basically setting it up so that, you know, Saudi and like Gulf investment goes into the Strip, which again, taking more away from Palestinian sovereignty. All right. And will be considered a synthesized security and governance frameworks to attract, facilitate these investments, blah, blah, blah. A special economic zone will be established with preferred tariff and access rates to be negotiated in participating countries. No one will be forced to leave Gaza, and those who wish to leave will be free to do so and free to return. We will encourage people to stay and offer them the opportunity to build a better Gaza. Hamas and other factions agree to not have any role in the governance of Gaza directly, indirectly, or in any form. All military, terror, and offensive infrastructure, including tunnels and weapons production facilities, will be destroyed and not rebuilt. There will be a process of demilitarization of Gaza under the supervision of independent monitors, which will include placing weapons permanently beyond use through an agreed process of decommissioning and supported by an internationally funded buyback and reintegration program, all verified by independent monitors. New Gaza will be fully committed to building a prosperous economy and peaceful coexistence with its neighbors. A guarantee will be provided by regional partners to ensure that Hamas and the factions comply with their obligations, that the new Gaza poses no threat to its neighbors or its people. The United States will work with Arab and international partners to develop a temporary international stabilization force, the ISF. This is huge. This is the international mission, right? To immediately deploy in Gaza. Why would they need to immediately deploy in Gaza? Is it to actually identify, arrest, apprehend, detain, and kill Palestinians? No. It's so that Israel stops blowing up Gaza. Just make no mistake. Like, the very fact that they are putting this in the plan is because they know how Israel operates. Okay? Will it end up working in the way that I mentioned, which is to apprehend, detain, kill Palestinians that they declare are members of the resistance forces? Probably. But if they were to do that, actually, I think that would be a devastating international crisis. So who knows? The ISF will train and provide support to vetted Palestinian police forces in Gaza and will consult with Jordan and Egypt, who have extensive experience in this field. This force will be the long-term internal security solution. The ISF will work with Israel and Egypt to help secure border areas, along with newly trained Palestinian police forces. It is critical to prevent munitions from entering Gaza to facilitate the rapid and secure flow of goods to rebuild and revitalize Gaza. A deconfliction mechanism will be agreed upon by the parties. Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. As the ISF establishes control and stability, Israel's defense forces will withdraw based on standards, milestones, and timeframes linked to demilitarization that will be agreed upon between the IDF, ISF, the guarantors, the United States, with the objective of a secure Gaza that no longer poses a threat to Israel, Egypt, or its citizens. Practically, the IDF will progressively hand over the Gaza territory it occupies to the ISF according to an agreement they will make with the transitional authority until they are withdrawn completely from Gaza, save for a security perimeter presence that will remain until Gaza is properly secure from any resurgent terror threat. In the event Hamas delays or rejects this proposal, the above, including the scaled-up aid operation, will proceed in the terror-free areas handed over from the IDF to the ISF. An interfaith dialogue process will be established based on the values of tolerance and peaceful coexistence to try and change mindsets and narratives of Palestinians and Israelis by emphasizing the benefits that can be derived from peace. While Gaza redevelopment advances and when the PA reform program is faithfully carried out, when they say the PA reform program, they're literally talking about like, you're not allowed to say anything mean about Israel as a Palestinian. That's what they're talking about, for the record. Because, like, for them, remember, this has been like a major component. They think that, like, Palestinians hate Israel because they're taught to hate Israel at school at an early age. And it's like, no, dipshit. They fucking hate Israel because Israel's doing a genocide. and Israel has had a permanent occupation over Palestinians for their entire lives and has blown up the fucking school. That's how people learn to hate Israel. Okay? The conditions may finally be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood, which we recognize as an aspiration of the Palestinian people. The United States will establish a dialogue between Israel and the Palestinians to agree on a political horizon for peaceful and prosperous coexistence. Here is the initial implementation. IDF current line of control. Initial withdrawal with the hostage release. And then the second withdrawal was when the ISF mobilized per standards set within the Trump plan. And then the third withdrawal will be the security buffer zone, which is still like a couple miles into the Gaza Strip. If you recall, they blew up. If you remember, this was always a part of Israel's plan as well. There's a reason why they blew up every house and every building inside of Gaza that was like in the 3 mile line, I believe. That is the third withdrawal line, the security buffer zone, as they called it. When we were saying, like, why the fuck are they blowing up schools and all these like buildings and shit and engaging in these sorts of demolitions, which they obviously advanced all around the Strip. They blew up everything in the Strip at this point. But the reason why they did this is because they wanted to create a security buffer zone between the Gaza Strip. This security buffer zone, as you can see, also includes the Philadelphia corridor as well. That's right here, the corridor between the Egyptian state boundary and the Gaza Strip. Truly abysmal, and yet another clear-cut demonstration of Western chauvinism, and it totally writes out Palestinians and their demands and their wishes, and simply uses the genocide, the ongoing genocide that they basically damn near admit here that they're conducting, as a bargaining chip. They're like, my way or the highway. We're just going to either keep doing the genocide and we're just going to keep slaughtering all of you, or we're just going to do it later down the line, but after you have completely demilitarized. Demilitarized in the process of an ongoing genocide, mind you. Okay? Jeremy Scahill says, important fact that no one mentions, on August 18th, Hamas formally agreed that 98% of the Gaza ceasefire terms that the U.S. and Israel demanded. Israel then attempted to assassinate the Palestinian negotiators in Doha. And now the Trump admin claims it has a new ceasefire plan. That's also something to consider as well. Anyway, here is the 20-point plan from DropSite. We already covered it. Do you think Hamas will accept? I don't know. I don't think they will. They just received it for the first time. Like, Hamas saw this plan at the same time that we did. Okay? If you want to understand, like, is this a real initiative for a ceasefire? It's not. They saw it. They saw it, and they haven't even been presented with the plan up until now. They've only seen it in the on the news. Because this was a plan that has pieces from previous Hamas negotiations. It has a plan. It was a plan that was completely concocted with the United States of America. France and Saudi plan is another one, and also Israel. This has not been presented. Hamas has played no role in the framework of and the development of this plan, with the exception of previous ceasefire negotiations that they've agreed to. Hamas fighters in chant learning of this. I'm crying. No, they're not learning from me. I don't think they're tuning in to twitch.tv/HasanAbi. Let's be real. But yeah, this is the reason why I said that it's most likely just another fake maximalist plan. And also Trump obviously said that if Hamas rejects the deal, Bibi, you have our full backing to do what you would have to do in Gaza, which is, again, what Bibi has been doing anyway. Okay? And here are some of the moments from the presser summarized here on Sky News.
To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, the Board of Peace, sort of a beautiful name, the Board of Peace, which will be headed, not at my request, believe me, I'm very busy, but we have to make sure this works. The leaders of the Arab world and Israel and everybody involved asked me to do this, so it would be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States. That's what I want, is some extra work to do, but it's so important that I'm willing to do it, and we'll do it right, and we're going to put leaders from other countries on, and leaders that are very distinguished leaders, and we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, good man, very good man, and some others, and they'll be named over the next few days, and it'll be quite the board. Working, everybody wants to be on it now. I don't know if that had anything to do. They named me and everybody else wanted to be on it. I guess they figure, well, he's a soft touch. He'll be easy to deal with. Working with the world.
People are saying he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. I don't care. I'm willing to let bygones be bygones and give him a Nobel Peace Prize if he actually did stop the genocide, for the record. I think it would be worthy. I think he would be worthy of a Nobel Peace Prize, even though he literally did the genocide. He's just not doing that here. Do you understand? That's my gripe. Like, if this was sincere, if this was a sincere, well thought out 20-point plan to end Israel's genocide and offer Palestinians some semblance of sovereignty, then yeah, I'll give him the fucking Nobel Peace Prize personally. I'll deliver it to him. It's just that this is not the case.
World Bank and others, it will be responsible for recruiting and training a new government that will be made up of Palestinians along with highly qualified experts from all around the world.
Yeah. Bruno Moches also reports the same thing that I've been talking about, which is, let's see, there was a ceasefire in January and people talked how tough with Israel Trump was. When Netanyahu got tired of it, he restarted the war, and no one from Trump to the Western media even cared to note that he had violated a solemn agreement with U.S. guarantees. In fact, back in March, he restarted the war with a full food blockade. Most likely scenario now is hostages are released, only thing Netanyahu is criticized for, and Israel resumes the genocide. That is precisely what's going to happen. And the reason why I say it's precisely what's going to happen is because that's the only thing that the Israeli public gives a shit about. They don't actually care about like ending the genocide in the absence of like more international pressure, of course, because that might change down the line as well, which is why I stress the importance of continuing the fucking protests, continuing the demands for boycotts, divestments, and sanctions of the state of Israel. Okay, as long as it has occupational power over the Palestinians, as long as it continues this genocide. But like, remember, what, your fridge? What do you mean? My fridge is fine. Shut up. That is the only thing that could potentially make it so that Israel is less invested in the permanent death and destruction of all Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. At this stage, the only thing that is going to happen is if Hamas says yes to this, they pull the fucking hostages, they start the process of demilitarization. Even if they start the process of demilitarization, which I don't think Hamas would say yes to, or any Palestinian resistance group would say yes to, for the record, what I suspect is going to happen is basically what I suspect is going to happen is basically that Israel continues its death and destruction.
Hamas and other terrorist factions will play no role in the board, but they'll play no role in the governance of Gaza at all, directly or indirectly. As you know, thousands of Hamas leaders have been killed and soldiers have been killed. And we can never forget October 7th, but thousands have paid the price for that. And now it's time to get our hostages back and get back to trying to build something that's really great and very important. In our meeting today, Prime Minister Netanyahu was very clear about his opposition to a Palestinian state, and he continuously mentions October 7th, and I understand that. Most people do. And I understand and respect his position on many things, but what he's doing today is so good for Israel. I notice that they have large crowds gathering in Israel all the time, and they have my name up. They like me for whatever reason, Bibi, I don't know, but they do like me.
Here is Haaretz's analysis on Israeli discontent, internal pushback that Benjamin Netanyahu will receive here, because, like I said, remember, they are invested in the maximalist position, with the exception of some in Israeli society expressing their discontent over not getting all the hostages back, the prisoners of war back, right? Amir Tiban from Haaretz says Netanyahu will face enormous pressure from within his coalition in the next day to thwart the plan, to toughen its conditions, and to convince Hamas that it's a conspiracy. In parallel, there will be briefings by commentators on behalf of Netanyahu. Surely Amit Segal has already started on how the agreement actually allows Israel to continue fighting Hamas, and the withdrawal will never happen, and the perimeter will be annexed, and so on. These are the same tactics we've seen throughout the past year in all rounds of negotiations, and they will be employed this time in an especially strong manner. The story is far from over. So Bibi is being anti-genocide compared to Israel government? Wait, what? No, dude. No. Benjamin Netanyahu cannot end this permanent war state, not only due to his own personal ambitions of remaining in power, not withstanding any sort of trial whatsoever, but also because he understands that the moment that this genocide ends is a moment where the world recognizes it for what it is. What do you think that does? So far, people are pissed off at Israel. I keep repeating over and over again that this is the most popular Israel will be at the global stage. Tomorrow, it will be less popular. Once there are more eyes, more Western eyes on what Israel has done, once the dust is settled, okay, it's fucking over. It's even more over than it has been, okay? What do you think will happen when they start digging up the bodies? What do you think will happen when they start realizing that the number is not 66,000, but 600,000? What then? What then? What do you think happens to the way that people see Israel? People already hate Israel, and they don't even know the full scope of the death and destruction. Any kind of de-escalation means that people will get a broader recognition of the scope of the death and destruction. No matter how hard they try to monitor TikTok and change the narrative and whatnot, I don't think they will succeed. We must not allow them to. Okay? And I think in the aftermath of that, public pressure from Western populations will grow even more against Israel, and Israel's pariah status will solidify in the international stage, and there will be even more recognition for boycotts, divestments, and sanctions against the state of Israel from Western populations, which will cause the Israeli population to recalculate their unlimited genocide position.